Hey, welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. How are you all this evening, this afternoon, whatever? Trying to catch up on some videos. I've got a list, I don't know how long, of videos that either I think of myself or people send me by email or message or something like that from the Patreon channel about things that they want me to cover or things that I want to cover myself. So I'm going to try to catch up. And while I'm waiting for the evening's pizza, I thought this might be a good time to talk briefly about this one. And that is, what do I think of other prepper channels? Since I know that the title of this will probably bring a lot of people that may not usually watch us here. I'll just introduce myself briefly. People say, well, who are you to make a judgment on other prepper channels? That's a good question. That's a valid question. So let me answer that briefly. I've been in the preparedness lifestyle for 56 or 7 years. Okay, since my dad started teaching me how to throw a knife and an axe on the family farm and other things out in the woods. It has always been one of my central interests. And through the years, I was involved in a lot of things having to do with preparedness and survival. You know, I just consumed the books as a young boy and then a young man about survival those situations. And so it's been a part of my life. When the big preparedness I'll call it, the interest hit. Oh gosh, when was it that show Doomsday Preppers, right? I mean, that made the preparedness world explode. Now there were people involved long before that. There has been survivalists and all sorts of things. That's what brought it to the mainstream, and as a result of that, the interest in preparedness exploded. And I remember way back before then, I would see some of I only saw a couple of those shows, a couple of them were, kind of interesting, and most of it was silly. For those of you who don't usually watch, I drink coffee while I talk. For those of you who watch all the time on both of my channels, he says, Steve, do you just spend all day drinking coffee? When I want to, yeah. No, but I drink coffee a lot when I make videos, and that's when you see me, right? So I watched a couple of those, and then I started, people started talking more about preparedness and survival and things like that, and because they knew my background, they would start asking me questions, and as a result of all the questions that they would ask, it got more and more. That's right. No, you don't have to be quiet. I don't shut down my life for these videos. That's part of my family. That's my wife coming in. Because preparedness is a part of my life. It's not just something that I do, when I make a video. So people would ask me my opinion and my advice on preparedness, and that led me to what became, and for those of you who don't know me, here's why I'm going to give my 95 cents worth on other prepper channels, because these are the books that I wrote about preparedness, and they are the result of my own experience. It's the Stonemount Series, for anybody who hasn't read them, for anybody who is seriously interested in preparedness and survival and the collapse of the country, the world, or your own world, whatever it is, the Stonemount Series. The reversion, the revival, the renewal, An Appeal to Heaven and the Blessings of Freedom. Or if you're just interested in a good story. I have so many women readers and so many women on here. Somebody says, are you sure those aren't romance novels? I said, nah, the women who follow me are kind of hardcore women, although I'm sure you all like romance too. And there's some spots in here that kind of bring a tear to your eye, aren't there? Those are the books. And I have told people that I have never been asked a question that I haven't already answered in depth in these books. And yes, you can get them. They're available on Amazon in either paperback or Kindle. Or there's a way that you can get them from me autographed if you'd like that. And all of those ways are down below listed in the information section and a pinned comment. I just started off with the one. I said, people keep asking me the same questions. And really it has to do with basic preparedness. But basic preparedness isn't enough. Basic preparedness is where you start. And then you have to think, what then? And then what then? And then what then? And what then? And you can never stop thinking about what's next. What if? Okay? So my first book, people around the world bought a lot of them. And then somebody asked, I've told this story, so I won't bore our old watchers, our old viewers with this again. But they sold like hotcakes around the world. I said, okay, good. So there you go. I told people, what I would. Now when they ask me my opinion on something, I said, here's a book, read it, or my advice. And then somebody says, I wonder what's going to happen next with such and such. And that made me realize that people wanted more, and that became the series, the Stonemount Series, and I'm working on the 6th one right now. And by the way, for the people who have asked repeatedly, what about the Audibles? When are the Audible books coming? I started working on that this week. So how about that? So I don't know when they'll come. I don't know. I tell you, it's tough work. Rush Limbaugh said one time that doing the voices for his books was the hardest work he'd ever done. And I thought that I couldn't imagine that. Well, I understand now. It's different. You make one flub, which I do often. You're reading a whole long thing. You make one flub on one word, and boop, you can either try to edit it out, but who wants that, And I'd rather have it nice and smooth. And you'd think, well, if you wrote it, why would you flub a word? You'd be surprised. Write a book and try to read it. You'll find out. So that's my background. And several years ago, I started this channel. And I had watched other preparedness creators before that. Way on back to Maine Prepper. Remember Maine Prepper? Some of you guys who've been around for a while. And, he left after that. But so I had watched a number of them. When I started writing my books, and I stopped kind of watching that. I have other things to do. And I don't really watch that many now. But when I started this channel a few years ago, it was never really my intent to build a channel. My intent was to have a channel through which I could answer questions for readers that wanted to ask me questions about the book. Well, one thing led to another, and I'm in no ways a big channel. I'm a small channel, but I come at it from a long background of experience. So that's why that's what I wanted to express to anybody who doesn't really know me much. Now, the question, what do I think of prepper channels? I've had people ask me about specific channels. I'm going to mention a few. If you've come on here hoping that I'm going to slam some channels, I'm not. So we'll get that out of the way. I don't do that. I don't believe in that, and I don't like people who do. It makes me question why in the world would they? Why? when we talk about prepper channels, and I'm going to ask your all's help too. I'm going to share something that's in the works, and I'm going to ask for your all's help in something, your all's recommendations, but hang with me. Don't start giving recommendations, because this isn't the place to do it. There are a lot of channels out there that are preparedness channels. There are a lot, and that what I mean by a preparedness channel is the channel focuses mainly on preparedness. Okay, it doesn't. There are some channels that touch on preparedness, but they're really gun channels. Okay, I don't consider those the core of the preparedness channels. There are other channels that are political channels. I don't consider those preparedness channels, except now, and some of you know, I split off the politics from this over to American reversion, because it's easy for the politics to get wrapped up in preparedness, because we prepare for what's going on in the world, right? And I'll say more about that in a minute. So when we talk about preparedness channels, to me, I consolidate that into the ones who are focused almost totally, at least primarily, on preparedness. Preparing to withstand challenging times. Okay? And integrative preparedness, I say that the concept of integrative preparedness is to be able to live well, separate from all of those interconnected external systems over which you have little or no control. Okay, and that's of course, I'm not going to go through it all here, because that's not what it's about. But you know, it's about shelter and water and food and defense and all those kinds of things. So channels that focus on that primarily are, to me, prepper channels. Okay. Now, some prepper channels may occasionally deal with guns. Some gun channels may occasionally deal with preparedness, but I separate those two. Now, I'm going to mention a few channels, and then I'm going to ask you. Well, I'd better do this first, is just because whenever I do this, I said, wait until you watch the whole video, but then I'll get people typing and sending in stuff, and it wasn't time, and then I will take it off, because I'm going to ask you specifically not to do certain things, and that is, do not recommend a channel on here. Do not. Why? Because the purpose of this forum is, and the purpose of this one right now, is what I think about channels. Okay, I'm going to give you an opportunity to participate in that. Okay, so do not need to leave a link. Don't put down in there, well, I like so and so. And you know what? You may be right. It may be the best channel in the whole world. But don't do it, because I've asked you not to. And so there's going to be a way for you to do that. Okay. Now, my opinion on prepper channels is pretty much my opinion on any channel. Anybody who will take the time to sit down and try to share their knowledge, or even talk about their interest in something, unless they're an out-and-out lion scoundrel dog, I will give them props. Good for them. Good for them. They have taken it upon themselves to sit down, spend a little time, share themselves with the world. You know, it takes a lot to share yourself with the world for some people. Okay? Not for me particularly. I've been out in the world all my life, you know, but a lot of people it does, and you know, they go the gamut from the extremely amateurish to the extremely professional, but they all are doing it for a reason, a purpose. Some on the lower end are doing it because they just want to share their whatever knowledge they have, or they want to share their interest. Good for them. Now, a lot of them want to build their channels. Good for them. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay? When somebody wants to build their channel, and to be honest, almost all channels secretly want to build. I don't care what they say. Everybody wants, because if they take their time, you want the most, you want it to be successful. Okay. So from the very smallest channel to the very largest channel, who is, by then they've become a business, and some of you can probably think of more than I. As I said, I don't watch a lot of channels now. I'm going to start watching more after the question that I ask you, because of something else that we're doing in the background. Canadian Prepper is a prime example. Now, I haven't watched very much of Canadian Preppers. I haven't watched many of his videos. When I have, I see that he has a big story. He's created a business for himself. He's created a business that was interesting to him and that other people found interesting. And he's been able to build a business out of it. He makes his, I assume, I don't know him, but I assume that he makes a good living out of it. Okay? Good for him. And yet I hear so many people ragging on him, so many people cracking on him. Most of the time that's jealousy. There's an old saying, you'll never be attacked by somebody doing less than you, People are always punching up. Anybody who's happy with their own life is not concerned with slamming anybody else. There's a small channel that I like very much. It's Lee over at Cold War Prepper. It's a small channel. You know that this guy is just as earnest as the day is long. I know the saying is honest as the day is long, but he's earnest. He keeps himself to preparedness, and he's a smart guy. Very small channel. Nobody would think of cracking on him, I hope. So why would they crack on Canadian Prepper or anybody else? Now, I'll tell you the two channels that I watch pretty much every day. And it's not necessarily that I learn anything there, because I've been doing this for 54 years, right? But I find it interesting. I like people who do good things. And I feel an affinity for the people in these two channels. One is Viking Preparedness, Joe Fox at Viking Preparedness. Another is Southern Prepper 1, David Kobler. Now, I believe Kobler was involved with Scott, I forget his name. He was involved in those first seasons, at least, of what was it called? Doomsday Preppers. And he has been in preparedness. He was back from the old Maine prepper days. I think they knew each other. And he's been involved in this forever. He's written a book. Right now, he is doing a series called Boots on the Ground. And I've heard people crack on that. I can't imagine why. It's valuable. I watch it. It's valuable information. Because he talks about, he has a very large following, a very large channel. And he has a lot of his people will send him, like a lot of you all, my regular, will send me information about what's happening in your area. Well, Dave has used that information and shares it with everybody on his channel. Here's what happened over here. Here's what's happening with this workplace. Giving everybody an idea of what's going on in the world. The economy, jobs, fuel shortages, food shortages, things like that is important information. The basis of preparedness is information. Your intelligence is important. And I don't mean just the intelligence that's up here, but the intelligence that you possess about what's going on in the world around you. And I hear people say disparaging things about that. I think that's ridiculous. Why do you think people used don't you want to know about what's going on in the world? Doesn't that give you an idea of what to prepare for? If a whole bunch of cattle are being slaughtered somewhere, if there's a drought someplace, I do, and you should too. So those two channels are channels that I watch. I didn't say. Joe Fox over at Viking Preparedness. He's a homesteader. He calls it neo-pioneering. He retired from the military and then left government service after that. Bought himself land in the Ozarks, and I love the Ozarks. And he and his wife created an entire community over the year. Cleared out the trees. You know, how many people out there cracking on people have done that? Cleared out the trees themselves. Created a community of like-minded people. These are people who are living what they talk about. And I enjoy, and like I say, I don't necessarily watch anybody to learn. I've been at it for a long time, right? Remember? 5 books. They don't come from nowhere. But I feel an affinity, and when I start my day, those are 2 that I'll sit down and I'll watch simply because, that's what they're doing today. I like it. It's kind of like having coffee, long distance coffee with somebody that you know. What are you up to today? You know, what's that? Hey, occasionally I'll pick up something that I hadn't thought about, or they're doing something that maybe is not something that I'm doing because they're in a different situation than I am. It doesn't matter. It's all interesting, and everybody should be watching them. So I'm going to ask you, here's going to be your chance in just a second, and I'll tell you what's going on in the background. My opinion of prepper channels is good for them. Anybody who has taken their time and putting themselves out there and trying either to help people or to build a business. And there is nothing wrong with trying to build a business out of something you enjoy. And the only people who think there is are people who are jealous about it or know or think they can't do it themselves. I doubt that anybody would criticize somebody for opening a restaurant and then saying, "You're just in it to make money." Well, I would hope so. I would hope so. Unless you want to serve food for free in a soup kitchen, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there's nothing wrong with the first one either. Here's the thing, and here's where I'm going to allow you to make suggestions. Now, it's not going to be on here, so don't do it. Stay off the keyboard. Among the many other things that I do, one of the things is our webmaster, who is my son, is putting together several websites for different businesses that we own. One of them is going to be a central website with a lot of preparedness resources available to it. And I'm going to list on this website all of the preparedness channels that I would recommend. Now, here's where you come in. I don't know all of the preparedness channels, but I think that this could be a really valuable resource. I know some. And they're going to come into different areas. There's going to be gun channels, and there's going to be homesteading channels, and then there's bushcrafting channels, and there's gardening channels, and all sorts of things. And they all come together under that umbrella. There's another one that I should mention, and I never really watched him much. He has great videos. He has great production quality, and that's John Lovell over at Warrior Poet. I never watched him simply because he's been mainly a gun channel, and pretty much everything that he does, I know, and it's not my focus now in life, but I just saw the other day that he and his wife, he has started getting more and more interested in preparedness, and he actually bought a place out in the country, and I give him props for that. I mean, I guess he moved out there, and if I'm wrong on this, correct me. It's just my first impression. And he seems like a really nice guy. You know, he's a former Army Ranger, obviously a competent person, obviously competent with the gun stuff. I didn't know he was really into preparedness, and maybe I will wonder if he got some of that from Jaeger. But I guess he went out and he bought himself a farm. So now he and his wife, and it was kind of a major move for them. And they got their animals now and their gardens going and all that. So he's starting to get into preparedness. Good, great. Hey, do I care that he is 10 million times bigger than me? No. I mean, channel, I don't know how big he is personally. His channel, no, great. Because when good people get into it, it helps the people who need it. You know, maybe somebody who doesn't know about me will know about him, and they'll get good advice. And that's the way it ought to be. So here's the deal. I don't know a lot of the channels out there. So you all can tell me about them. Okay? But you can only do it over on the Patreon. Are you just trying to get me to give you $1? No, I don't care about your dollar. And I would imagine I'm going to get the information one way or another, you know. But I don't allow, it's simply a matter of my rules. I don't allow links here on YouTube, and I don't allow anybody to make a recommendation. Here again, it may be somebody that I think's jam up. It may be somebody that you think is jam up, but I don't. And so I won't leave something on there that, and you don't know, you know, my criteria. But I'm happy to hear, you know, whatever you want to send in. And so send them, you know. Go over on Patreon. It only costs $1 for crying out loud. I mean, if you're really interested in this, or if you love somebody so much that, you know, you want to get his information, you want to get him out there, ask him for the $1, you know, or whatever. It's simply a way that I'm going to control the information, and, you know, crying out loud. So that's my opinion on prepper channels. I'm sure that there are some people there, not you, but the guy behind you probably, who is all disappointed that I didn't come out and rag on whatever channel they hate. The only ones that I don't particularly like are the ones who rag on other channels. It's unseemly. And if they were doing enough with their own life, they wouldn't feel the need to do that, right? So, and for the most part, I mean, they kill themselves off. But whatever anybody's doing, good for them. Support them if you like them. Share them with your friends if you like them. And share them with me. Because I think that this is something that I've had in my mind for a little while. And now that we have a lot of other things going on, we're going to get it together. And I think it'll be a good resource for the people that want to go to one place and say, okay, these are kind of the vetted channels that have been sent in to Integrative Preparedness, and it's a kind of a one-stop shop. And I'll be interested, because I'm going to be interested. I know I'm not going to be able to watch them all. I'll watch one of each one to see if, and then if I have to watch more in order to make a decision, I'll watch as many of a particular channel as I need to in order to make a decision. Do they get on the list? Do they not get on the list? Simple as that. And hopefully it'll help a lot of them. So anyway, I hope that that's been interesting and helpful to you all. If you were new to us, we're glad to have you here. And we always welcome comments. We do require that they be polite. We don't tolerate any arguing or telling people that they're stupid or you know, snarkiness. I don't allow snottiness and snarkiness. I have a hard time with that. And remember, if you really want the big lessons, you can get these. The links are down there. And become a stone miner. And when you do, let me know. Send me an email. Send me a message. And let me know, which book you're in and what book you're on. Also, for the people on Patreon, they get to ask me questions over there about stuff in the books over on Patreon. So that's it, guys. Whoever's out there trying to do something good in the preparedness world, support them. Because if that's your interest, they've shown that it's their interest too. And don't think that because somebody is trying to make some money off of something, it makes them a charlatan. You don't say that about all the other things in your life, right? Whatever you do for a living, are you a phony? Are you a fake? Are you just in it for the money? Or are you somebody that actually interested in something and knows how to do something? And hey, maybe you can start a channel and help other people with that, right? And there's nothing wrong with you making a penny or two. So that's it. Thanks for being here. I look forward to receiving all of those recommendations. I'll be right here writing them down and putting them on the list. I don't know when it will get up. Probably take a couple of months. These things take some time, and I've only got 9 million things going on right now at the same time. So we'll just see. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And maybe this will help some other people prepare well today. So thank you for your input, whatever you choose to do. And you all have a good day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.